Captain June stood at the window of his ship and watched the stars. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had traveled for 3 months to reach this place. Now they were here, at the edge of known space, about to meet beings from other worlds for the first time. The ship was called the Horizon's Edge. It was the pride of Earth. The first vessel built to travel between stars. June had been chosen to lead this mission because he was calm and patient. He believed in peace. He believed that when humans finally met aliens, they would become friends. He was wrong. Lieutenant Hannah sat at the communication station. She was young, barely 30, but she was the best linguist on Earth. She had spent years studying signals from deep space, learning patterns, preparing for this moment. When the first alien transmission came through, she was ready, but the words she translated made her blood run cold. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking, "they are not welcoming us. They are calling for warships." June turned slowly. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. They keep repeating something. They call us the sleepers. They say the warnings were true." Before June could respond, the darkness outside the window filled with light. Ships appeared from nowhere, dozens of them, then hundreds. They surrounded the horizon's edge like wolves circling a wounded animal. Dr. Tay rushed onto the bridge. He was the ship's historian, an old man with white hair and kind eyes. He had spent his life studying ancient texts and forgotten civilizations. Now he carried a tablet in his trembling hands. "Captain, I found something," he said. "I accessed their public archives. There are records here that go back 12,000 years. They speak of something called the warnings of the first ones." "The first ones?" June asked. "The oldest civilization in the galaxy. They disappeared long ago, but before they left, they wrote prophecies. Warnings about a species that would come from the edge of the galaxy. A species from a death world." Hannah looked up. "Death world." Tay nodded slowly. "A planet with extreme conditions, high gravity, violent weather, dangerous animals. A world where only the strongest could survive." He paused. They were describing Earth. They were describing us. The main screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared. It was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked separately. When it spoke, its voice was translated automatically. "I am Vel, High Speaker of the Galactic Concord. For 12,000 years, we have waited for this day. We hoped it would never come. The warnings told us of your kind. Beings who thrive on conflict. Beings who cannot be controlled. Beings who will bring the end of all order." June stepped forward. "High Speaker, there has been a mistake. We come in peace. We only want to learn and share knowledge." Vel's 4 eyes narrowed. "That is what the warnings said you would say. Your words are sweet, but your nature is poison. We have seen your history, your wars, your violence. You are exactly what the first ones predicted." "Our history is complicated," June admitted, "but we have changed. We have united. We left our planet not to conquer, but to explore." "The predator always speaks softly before it strikes," Vel replied. "The Concord will not make the mistake of trusting you."
Oh.
The transmission ended. The alien ships moved closer. Hannah worked frantically at her station. "Captain, I am picking up transmissions between their fleets. They are arguing. Some want to destroy us immediately. Others want to capture us for study. And there is a third group that believes we are gods." "Gods," June said in disbelief. "They think the warnings were not a curse, but a blessing. They believe humans are meant to change the galaxy."
Ow.
Tay shook his head. "This is madness. They have turned ancient texts into prophecy. They see us as monsters or messiahs, but they do not see us as what we are. Just people." Young Mina, an ensign who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Sir, what do we do? If we run, they will chase us to Earth. If we fight, we will die." June looked at his small crew. 57 humans, alone in a hostile galaxy. They had no weapons that could match the alien fleet. They had no allies. They had nothing but themselves. But they had something the aliens did not expect. They had hope. "Open a channel," June said quietly. "Broadcast to everyone. Every ship, every station, every world that can hear us." Hannah hesitated. "Sir, that could make things worse, or it could make things better. They fear us because of stories written 12,000 years ago. It is time they heard our story." She opened the channel. June took a deep breath and spoke. "My name is June. I am the captain of the human ship, Horizon's Edge. We have traveled from a small planet called Earth. You call it a death world. We call it home. Yes, our world is harsh. Yes, our history is filled with struggle. But that struggle taught us something important. It taught us that survival means nothing without connection. We fought each other for thousands of years. Then we learned to work together. We built cities. We created art. We dreamed of the stars. And now we are here not as conquerors, but as students. We want to learn from you. We want to grow with you. We want to be your friends. I do not know what the first ones wrote about us, but I know who we are. And I am asking you to give us a chance to show you." He nodded to Hannah. She ended the transmission. For a long moment, nothing happened. The alien ships hung in space like frozen stars. Then every communication channel in the galaxy exploded with noise. Some voices called for immediate attack. Others demanded negotiation. A few whispered prayers. The Concord, united for 12,000 years, began to crack. Dr. Tay looked at the chaos on his screens. "Captain, what have you done?" June watched the confusion spreading across the stars. "I told them the truth. Now we will see what they do with it." Outside, the galaxy held its breath, and humanity waited. The galaxy was breaking apart. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of the Starfall, Earth's largest warship. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair cut short. She had spent 40 years in the military, but nothing had prepared her for this. 3 weeks after Captain June's broadcast, the Galactic Concord had shattered into pieces. Reports came in every hour. The Purifiers, a group of species who believed humans must be destroyed, had gathered the largest fleet. The Seekers, who wanted to capture humans and study them, controlled dozens of research stations. And the Believers, who worshipped humans as divine beings, were growing in number every day. "They are all insane," Sung muttered. Her first officer, a tall man named Han, nodded. "They have believed these warnings for 12,000 years. They cannot simply forget them. We have been in space for less than a century. We do not even have proper weapons. How can they fear us so much?" The answer came sooner than she expected. A message arrived from the outer colonies. A fleet of 17 Purifier warships had attacked a small mining station called New Dawn. 2,000 humans lived there, families, children, workers who had left Earth to build a better life. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, half the station was destroyed. Sung closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with cold fire. "Send every ship we have. We will meet them at the Coral Asteroid Field." Her fleet was small, 12 ships against 17. But Sung did not care about the numbers. She cared about her people. Meanwhile, on a neutral station far from the fighting, Counselor Bora sat across from 3 alien diplomats. She was Earth's lead negotiator, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a calm voice. She had spent 30 years settling disputes between nations. Now she was trying to settle a dispute between species. "You must understand," she said carefully. "We did not come here to fulfill any prophecy. We did not even know about the warnings until we arrived." The Moreth diplomat leaned forward. "That makes it worse. The first ones said the sleepers would not know their own nature. They said you would believe yourselves peaceful while destroying everything around you. We have destroyed nothing. We have attacked no one. You exist," the diplomat replied. "That is enough." Bora kept her expression neutral, but inside she felt a deep sadness. These beings had lived in fear for thousands of years. They had taught their children to fear. They had built their entire civilization around fear. And now that fear had become real to them. "What would it take to prove we are not your enemies?" she asked before anyone could answer. An explosion rocked the station. Alarms screamed. Guards rushed in and grabbed Bora, pulling her toward the exit. "Purifier agents," one guard shouted. "They tried to kill you." Bora looked back at the smoking room. The alien diplomats were gone, fled through another door. The chance for peace had vanished with them in the asteroid field. Admiral Sung faced her enemy. The Purifier ships were larger, faster, and better armed. They expected an easy victory. They expected humans to run or surrender. They were wrong. Sung used the asteroids as shields. She ordered her ships to hide among the rocks, to strike and disappear, to fight like ghosts. When one of her vessels lost its weapons, its captain rammed the enemy ship, destroying both. The aliens watched in horror. What kind of species would sacrifice themselves so willingly? What kind of beings would fight with such desperate fury? The battle lasted 2 days. By the end, Sung had lost 7 ships, but the Purifier fleet was gone. All 17 vessels destroyed. News of the battle spread across the galaxy. Beings on 1,000 worlds watched footage of small human ships charging at enemies twice their size. They saw humans dying not in retreat but in attack. They saw a species that refused to give up. The warnings suddenly seemed very real, back on the horizon's edge. Now captured by the Seekers, Captain June sat in a white cell with Lieutenant Hannah and Ensign Mina. They had been prisoners for 2 weeks. Every day, aliens came to study them. They measured their bodies. They tested their reflexes. They asked endless questions. "Why do you not sleep more?" a Seeker scientist asked. "We do not need much sleep," June answered. "Why can you survive such extreme temperatures?" "Our bodies adapt." "Why do your wounds heal so quickly?" June had no answer for that. He had never thought about it. On Earth, these things were normal. Here they were miracles. Dr. Tay was kept in a separate cell, but he managed to send messages through the prison system. His latest message arrived on a stolen tablet. "I found more records," the message read. The first ones did not just vanish. They left on purpose. And before they left, they planted seeds of life across the galaxy. They designed species to evolve in specific ways. Humanity was not an accident. We were created, but I do not understand why. Mina read the message and looked at June. If they created us, then the warnings were not predictions. They were plans. But plans for what? Hannah asked. Before anyone could answer, the door opened. A Seeker guard entered. Behind him walked a strange figure. It was an alien from a species none of them recognized. It moved slowly, its body old and bent. "I am tall," the figure said. "I have come to understand you. I have come to see if the warnings are true." June stood and faced the alien. "And what have you decided?" Tall studied him for a long moment. "I have decided that I do not know. You are strange beings. You fight like demons, but speak like poets. You could have tried to escape many times, but you have not harmed any of us. You are not what the warnings described, and yet you are exactly what they described. I am very confused." Despite everything, June smiled. "So are we." Outside the prison, the galaxy continued to burn. But in that small white cell, something unexpected was happening. An alien was beginning to doubt. A wall was beginning to crack, and humanity waited, patient and unbroken. For the moment they could show the galaxy who they really were. Mina sat in the corner of her new cell and looked at the creatures around her. She had been moved from the main prison to a different wing. Here, she was not alone. 12 aliens from 7 different species shared the dark room with her. All of them were prisoners. All of them were test subjects. They looked at her with fear in their many eyes. "You are human," one of them whispered. It was a small creature with blue skin and thin arms. "We have heard of your kind. The warnings speak of you." Mina nodded slowly. "I know what the warnings say, but I am just a person. I am not a monster." The blue creature moved closer. "The Seekers took my family. They said they needed subjects for their experiments. They said it was for the good of the galaxy." "I am sorry," Mina said. "That is terrible." The creature tilted its head. "You feel sorry for me? But I am not human. The warnings say you care only for your own kind. Mina reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of bread. It was her dinner, the only food she would receive today. She broke it into pieces and offered them to the creatures around her. "Are you hungry?" she asked. They stared at her. Then, slowly, they took the bread. That night, Mina told them stories about Earth. She described oceans and mountains and cities made of glass. She talked about her family, her friends, her dreams of seeing the stars. The aliens listened in silence. Some of them had never heard a human voice speak kindly before. When morning came, something had changed. The fear in their eyes was fading. In its place was something new: curiosity, hope far away. On a frozen moon called Veros, Private Wu crawled through the snow. His squad had been ambushed during a patrol. Their ship was destroyed. Most of his friends were dead. He was wounded, bleeding, and alone. Then he heard voices. He hid behind a rock and watched. A purifier shuttle had crashed nearby. Aliens were pulling themselves from the wreckage. They were hurt, some of them badly. They would not survive long in the cold. Wu's training told him to leave. These were enemies. They had killed his friends. They wanted to destroy his species. Every rule said he should walk away, but Wu was not just a soldier. He was a human. He stood up and walked toward the crashed ship. The aliens saw him coming. They tried to raise their weapons, but they were too weak. They waited for death. Instead, Wu knelt beside them and opened his medical kit. "What are you doing?" One alien gasped. "Helping you," Wu said simply. He worked for hours. He bandaged wounds, set broken bones, and shared his water. The aliens watched him with wide eyes. They could not understand. Why would a human save his enemies? When rescue ships finally arrived, they found Wu sitting among the purifiers, keeping them warm with emergency blankets. The image was broadcast across the galaxy. A human soldier, lone and wounded, had chosen mercy over revenge. In another part of the Seeker Station, Dr. Yoon sat in a laboratory cell. She was a scientist, not a soldier. She had come to space to study the stars, not to fight. Now she was a prisoner, waiting to be dissected. Her guard was an alien named Tal. He was the same one who had visited Captain June. Every day, came to check on her. Every day he asked questions. "Why do you sing?" Tal asked one morning. Ik looked up. She had been humming an old song from her childhood. "It makes me feel better. When I am scared or sad, I sing." The warnings do not mention singing. The warnings do not know everything about us. Tal sat down outside her cell. "Teach me." Yoon blinked. "Teach you to sing?" "Yes. I want to understand." So she taught him. She sang simple songs. Lullabies she remembered from her mother. Tal's voice was strange and rough, but he tried. Day after day, he tried. One evening, Tal asked a different question. "Why did your people leave Earth? You could have stayed safe on your world. Why risk everything to come here?" Yoon thought for a moment. "Because we wanted to know if we were alone. We looked up at the stars our whole lives, wondering if anyone else was out there. We built ships and flew into the darkness because we hoped to find friends, and instead you found enemies. We found frightened beings who believed old stories, but fear can change. Stories can be rewritten." Tal was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. "The Seekers plan to make Captain June kill someone. They want to prove that humans are savage. They will threaten his death if he refuses." Yoon's heart went cold. "Will he do it? I do not know. But I know what I have seen. I have seen your friend Mina share her food with strangers. I have seen reports of the soldier Wu saving enemies. I have heard you sing songs of peace and love." Paused. "The warnings say humans are monsters. But I have looked into your eyes and I see no monsters. I see beings who are afraid and far from home just like me." Stood and walked away. The next day, the Seekers brought Captain June to a large room. Cameras recorded everything. Aliens across the galaxy watched as a helpless prisoner was placed before him. A weapon was put in his hand. "Kill the prisoner," the Seeker commander ordered. Prove what you are. June looked at the weapon. He looked at the frightened creature before him. He thought of his crew. He thought of Earth. He thought of everything humanity had fought for. Then he dropped the weapon. I am human, he said quietly. And this is what we are. The Seekers moved to kill him. At that moment, Lieutenant Hannah burst through a door she had secretly unlocked. She threw herself at the guards. In the chaos, she was shot. She fell beside June, her life fading. With her last breath, she transmitted a message to Earth. We are not what they fear. Show them. The broadcast reached 1 billion worlds, and the galaxy finally began to listen. The weapon was called the Star Killer. It was an ancient device. It was built by the first ones before they disappeared. For 12,000 years it had been locked away, too terrible to use. Now the purifiers had found it. Now they aimed it at Earth's sun. Admiral Sung received the news at midnight. A spy had escaped from purifier space with images of the weapon being prepared. In 3 days, it would fire. Earth would freeze. 8 billion humans would die. She called every captain in the fleet. We have one chance. We must intercept the weapon before it fires. Admiral, one captain said, we do not have enough ships. Half our fleet was destroyed in the asteroid battle, I know. This could be the end of us. Sung looked at the faces on her screen. Tired faces. Scared faces. Human faces. I know that too. But if we do not try, we die anyway. At least this way, we die fighting. She ended the call and gave the order to move. Meanwhile, Ambassador Quan traveled alone through hostile space. He was 70 years old, retired from diplomacy, brought back because Earth had no one else to send. His ship was small and unarmed. His only protection was a white flag of peace. Che landed on the Morath homeworld and walked through streets filled with aliens who had been taught to hate him. Some threw objects. Some screamed insults. Most simply stared with cold eyes. Quan kept walking. He reached the great hall where High Speaker Vel waited. The ancient alien looked down at the small human with something like pity. You come alone, Vel said. Either you are very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both, Quan replied. I come to ask you a question. What question could matter now? The purifiers will destroy your world. The prophecy will be fulfilled. Quan stepped forward. My question is simple. Have you ever read the complete warnings? All of them? Or only the parts that made you afraid? Vel's 4 eyes widened. What do you mean? I have studied your history. The warnings were sealed away long ago. Only fragments are known to the public. Fragments that speak of death and destruction. But where are the rest? What else did the first ones write? Vel was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. The complete texts are locked in the Archive of Origins. They have not been opened in 8,000 years. Just open them now. Why should I? Quan spread his old hands. Because you are about to watch my species die. And if you do that without knowing the full truth, you will never be free of doubt. You will spend the rest of your days wondering if you made a mistake. That is a terrible way to live. Vel stared at the human. Then slowly, he nodded. Guards, bring me the archive keys. Across the galaxy, a young woman named Sora sat in a hidden room surrounded by machines. She was a journalist, once famous on Earth for exposing corruption. Now she had a bigger mission. She had hacked into alien communication networks for weeks. Had been broadcasting stories about humanity. Not stories of war, stories of life. She showed videos of weddings and birthdays. She played recordings of children laughing. She shared images of artists painting and musicians playing and families eating dinner together. Tonight, she broadcast something new. It was footage from the Seeker station. Secretly recorded by Tal before he helped Yoon escape. It showed everything. The experiments. The torture. The creatures locked in cages. The atrocities committed in the name of preventing atrocities. You have been told that humans are monsters, Sora said over the footage. But look at what has been done to us. Look at what has been done to innocent beings of all species. The true monsters are not the ones locked in cells. The true monsters are the ones holding the keys. The broadcast reached millions of viewers. On dozens of worlds, protests began. Beings who had never questioned the warnings began to ask if they had been lied to. Admiral Milsong's fleet reached the Starkiller with 12 hours to spare. The battle was unlike anything in history. The Purifiers had surrounded the weapon with their largest ships. They fought with desperate fury, knowing that if they failed, their chance to destroy humanity would be lost forever. Sung fought back with everything she had. Ships exploded on both sides. Bright fires bloomed in the darkness of space. Sung lost vessel after vessel, but her fleet kept pushing forward. They broke through the enemy lines. They reached the weapon, but the Starkiller was already charging. In minutes, it would fire. Commander Yuna, who had taken Hannah's place after her death, made a decision. She aimed her ship directly at the weapons core. "Commander, no," Sung shouted. Admiral Yuna said calmly, "Lieutenant Hannah gave her life so the galaxy could see who we are. I will give mine so we can live." She flew her ship into the Starkiller. The explosion destroyed both. The weapon never fired. When the light faded, the battle was over. The Purifier fleet was broken, but the humans had not chased them down. They had not fired on the retreating ships. They had let their enemies go. On the Morith homeworld, High Speaker Vel watched the battle footage with Ambassador Quan. "They could have destroyed the remaining Purifier ships," Vel said slowly. "They chose not to." Quan nodded. "That is who we are." Vel turned to the unsealed archive. Ancient texts glowed on the screen, words written 12,000 years ago. "Perhaps it is time I learned who the first ones really thought you were." He began to read Tal Wei. Tal led Yoon through a secret passage to a waiting ship. In her hands, she carried the evidence of Seeker crimes. Behind them, alarms screamed. "Why are you helping me?" Yoon asked as they ran. Tal did not look back. "Because you taught me to sing. Because the warnings were wrong. Because for the first time in my life, I want to choose my own path." They reached the ship and flew into the stars. The galaxy was still at war. But something was changing. In the hearts of beings across 1,000 worlds, a new idea was taking root. Maybe humans were not monsters after all. The Archive of Origins had been sealed for 8,000 years. High Speaker Vel sat alone in the Great Hall, reading words that no living being had seen in millennia. Ambassador Quan waited silently beside him. Outside, the galaxy held its breath. When Vel finally looked up, his 4 eyes were filled with tears. "We were wrong," he whispered. "We were so wrong." Quan leaned forward. "What do the warnings really say?" Vel turned the screen so the old human could see. The first ones did not leave because they were wise. They left because they were dying. Their civilization had become stagnant. They had stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped dreaming. They knew that eventually they would fade away. And the warnings about humanity? They were not about destruction. Vel's voice shook. They were about choice. The first ones saw that one day a species would arise that could not be controlled. A species that would force the galaxy to decide between fear and hope, between the old ways and something new. They wrote that this species would bring the end of order. But they did not mean chaos. They meant the end of stagnation, the end of fear, the end of the ancient systems that were slowly killing us all. Quan read the words on the screen. The destruction the warnings spoke of was not physical. It was the destruction of complacency, the shattering of prejudice, the breaking of chains that the galaxy did not even know it wore. The first ones hoped that when your kind arrived, Vel continued, the galaxy would have the courage to embrace change. Instead, we did exactly what they feared. We turned their hopes into horror stories. We made enemies of the very beings who might have saved us. Quan placed a gentle hand on the ancient alien's arm. It is not too late. We are still here. You are still here. Change can begin now. Vel ordered the complete warnings broadcast to every world in the galaxy, Captain. June stood before the greatest gathering in history. After his rescue from the Seeker Station, he had become a symbol. The human who refused to kill, the man who dropped the weapon, Representatives from hundreds of species had come to hear him speak. He looked out at the crowd. He saw fear in many eyes, but he also saw curiosity. He also saw hope. "You believed the ancient warnings," June began. "You believed we were monsters. And because you believed, you attacked us. You tried to destroy us. You almost succeeded." The crowd stirred nervously. "But we did not hate you for it. We were angry. We were hurt. We lost people we loved. But we understood that you were afraid, and fear makes beings do terrible things." He paused and let his words settle. "I am not here to tell you that humans are perfect. We are not. Our history is filled with mistakes. We have hurt each other. We have hurt our planet. We have done things we are ashamed of. But we have also done something that the first ones could not do. We changed. Every generation, we became a little better, a little kinder, a little more willing to reach out to those who are different." June looked at the faces before him. Alien faces. Strange faces. Beautiful faces. The warnings said we would bring the end of order. Maybe that is true. But sometimes order is just another word for chains. Sometimes the old ways need to die so new ways can be born. We did not come to the stars to conquer you. We came because we were lonely. We came because we wanted to find friends. That is still what we want." He spread his hands. "The choice is yours. You can keep fighting. You can keep fearing. Or you can take a chance on something new. We are ready when you are." General Day stood on the walls of humanity's last defense. Earth's cities stretched behind him, filled with billions of people who did not know if they would live or die. Before him, the final Purifier fleet approached. These were the fanatics, the ones who refused to believe the new truth. They came to finish what they had started, but they did not come alone. Beside Day's human soldiers, alien ships took position. Ships from the New Dawn, the alliance of beings who had rejected the old warnings. Ships commanded by creatures who had watched Sora's broadcasts and chosen hope over fear. Ships crewed by those who had been moved by Wu's mercy, by Mina's kindness, by June's courage. For the first time, humans and aliens fought side by side. The battle was fierce but short. The Purifiers were outnumbered. More importantly, they were alone. Their own people had abandoned them. Their own soldiers had refused to fight. When the last Purifier ship surrendered, silence fell across the fleet. General Day looked at the alien commander beside him. "Thank you for coming," the commander nodded. "Thank you for showing us another way." Mina stood on a new station built in the neutral zone between human and alien space. She was no longer an ensign. She was an ambassador now, one of the first humans to hold such a role. Through the window, she watched ships from 100 species coming and going. Trade sea trade vessels, exploration ships, tourist cruisers. The galaxy was changing. Every day, it changed a little more. She recorded a message for the archives. They believed the ancient warnings. They believed we were the end of everything. But the warnings were never about what we would do to them. They were about what we would make them see in themselves. Fear, hope, cruelty, kindness, the capacity for both destruction and creation. We held up a mirror to the galaxy, and they did not like what they saw. But they had the courage to change. And in the end, they chose to be better. She smiled softly. The first ones left because they could not change. Perhaps one day we will find them. Perhaps we will show them what the galaxy has become. Perhaps they will finally come home. She ended the recording and looked out at the stars. Dr. Tay continued his research in a laboratory filled with ancient texts. Sora built a media network that spread stories of cooperation across the galaxy. Tal and Yoon worked together at a refugee station, helping those displaced by the war find new homes. Private Wu trained the first generation of joint human-alien peacekeepers, and Captain June retired to a small house on Earth, where he sat on his porch each evening and watched the ships flying overhead. Sometimes alien visitors came to meet him. He welcomed them all with tea and stories and the same quiet smile. The warnings had spoken of destruction. They had not understood that sometimes The only thing that needs to be destroyed is fear itself and humanity. Feared for so long, had finally taught the galaxy to hope.